Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are chatting with Dr. Joni Dietrich, a clinical psychologist from America and the founder of a spiritual organization called the Wisdom School, based in California. Also known as Rajashree Maa, she is the author of the book, May the Love Force Be With You, Kali-Ki Reiki, Healing Through Divine Mother and Yogic Wisdom. Rajashree Maa, a lot of people have heard of Reiki and are perhaps somewhat familiar with it. What's the connection with yoga and spirituality? Walk us through how that works.
Thank you, Vishnu Das, for that question. You know, I actually think that would be a question for anyone who knows anything about ordinary Reiki, and also for people that don't know anything about Reiki, because the Reiki that I teach is not the ordinary Reiki that most people have learned up to this point. The Reiki that I teach, I call it Kali-Ki Reiki. It is actually a yoga, and it's a Reiki that's based on direct revelations of Divine Mother. And so it fits into everything that we study and learn in Satyachetana so perfectly well. This is what I've found as I've been practicing and teaching Kali-Ki Reiki, that it actually is almost in its own self a kind of sadhana. So, for example, in Reiki, what we do initially to get the energy, the love force, the life force moving is we invoke certain symbols. And in Kali-Ki Reiki, we have symbols that are beautiful life forms that were given by Divine Mother. These light forms, they just dance and they sing. And when we invoke her with one of these light forms, with one of these symbols, we begin to feel her energy, her love force flow through us. So you see, it's actually a kind of yagna, right? Because in the Bhagavad Gita, for example, it says many times that we must do yagna regularly, daily. And what is yagna? As Swami Sri Atmananda teaches us, yagna is invocation, offering, and worship. And that is exactly the process of Reiki. We start by invoking these beautiful symbols, and that invites her into our system, and we become her instrument, her channel. And once the Reiki love force has been activated in us, for example, in our hands, then we offer it, we send it, or we place our hands on our recipient, and we offer them this Reiki. The secret is, though, that it's not me doing the offering, because in the invocation, I have now become an instrument of this Divine Mother. So I place my hands, I do the offering, I go from place to place, perhaps on the body, or if I'm working at distance, I simply send to the various chakras, the various elements of the human form. And then, as the healing happens and is complete, well, then as we finish, what do? But we worship, we offer gratitude, we give thanks, and we give thanks for whatever healing process has occurred. And so for me, every day when I am practicing Kali-Ki Reiki, I'm actually doing yagna. Now, in addition to that, I referred to it a little bit before. One of the practices, of course, of all yogas, and certainly of Kali-Ki Reiki, is non-attachment. You know, the Bhagavad Gita talks about we really are the non-doer. We don't do anything. And so we feel as if we don't do anything when we are in the process of yagna. And indeed, when I'm offering Reiki, it's not me, it's not Rajashree Maa that's offering the Reiki, that's transmitting the Reiki. No, instead, it's me being that instrument, that channel for the divine. And there is a recognition of this. Now, I have to say that new practitioners, at first, they don't understand this, and we talk to them about, you have to get out of the way. It's not your ego doing this. Get the ego out of the way. But in truth, from the moment we invoke Divine Mother through these symbols, and she comes alive in us, we are her channel. We are her instrument. And therefore, when we place our hands on someone, we're not giving them my energy. I mean, nobody's going to want my energy. They're going to get my samskaras if they do. But rather, I'm serving as this instrument, this channel through which the divine, what I call love force, flows. And what that does, actually, it's so beautiful, is that it doesn't give the other person an energy they don't already have, right? Because we all are this one beautiful energy, this one beautiful love force. Rather, I see it as charging or activating the energy within the person. And as it does that, the energy within the person comes up and it rebalances itself, it harmonizes, and then there is a healing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Okay, so we've got the non-attachment to doership. I am not the doer of this. We aren't attached to the process either. I mean, there's a technique, there's a protocol, there's this and there's that. But when this love force is flowing through us, we are often guided as to what to do. And we don't cling to a certain kind of this is the way or that is the way. Rather, we allow her to do it for us. So often I find myself placing my hands on someone. Maybe I have my hands on their shoulders because they said that they had a problem with their shoulders. And suddenly I'm drawn to the knee. I work with the knee for a while. And then I'm drawn back to the head and I work with that for a while. And then when the session is done, the person says to me, wow, I came to you because my shoulders were hurting and they're feeling great now. But actually, I didn't remember I had this pain in my knee and I have chronic headaches. And somehow you just went there. Well, what's interesting about that, right, is the client will often say, wow, you're so strong, you're so powerful, you're such a great healer. And that's when, of course, the yogi in me needs to remember this isn't me. This is the Divine Mother working through me. And so the other thing is about this, right, is it's also the non-attachment, right, to doership, non-attachment to process, and then, most importantly, non-attachment to results, to outcome. So, for example, a woman came to me. I didn't know her, and she came to me for a session. I didn't know why she was coming. I opened my door. And the moment I saw her, my psychic eye, it saw death. I mean, I saw death. And I was like kind of blown away. This was a woman in her 30s, a youngish woman. She came in, I welcomed her, of course, and I didn't say a word about this. And she told me that she had a recurrence of a late-stage breast cancer. And I asked her, I said, so what is your intention for this healing? And she said to me, she looked at me and she said, I want a cure. And I thought, whoa, how are we ever going to get you a cure? I mean, I'm already seeing death. But when a client comes to you, you honor what their desires are, what their intentions are. You honor those. So we did the session. And when we finished, the first thing she said to me is, I have not felt this alive in 4 years. I thought, oh, okay, she's coming back from a kind of death. Well, I mean, she did not survive, but she lived, and she feels it was because of the Reiki, an additional 2 or 3 years, a time during which she was able to provide for her young children. That was her deepest concern. And by the time we were complete with the process, her intentions had changed. She no longer was looking for cure. She was just looking for a pathway to be assured that her children would always be safe, well cared for, and know that they were loved. And so you see, her original intention to be completely cured was not necessarily what the divine's intention was for her, what her destiny was to be. And even though I saw that, of course I honored what it was she was looking for. And indeed, she was so much happier and so much better off, truly, during that time than she might have been otherwise. She'd lost her depression. She was managing, she was accepting what was her fate. And this happens also in small ways. You know, people come to me, like I said, oh, my shoulders cause me so much pain. And then they realize, oh, maybe they have an emotional release, and they realize, oh, now I see why my shoulders hurt so much. It's because I've been holding so much tension there because of my frustration with my boss or my spouse or whatever. And this revelation comes to them because I'm not saying, oh, we got to fix her shoulders. We got to fix this. We got to fix that. That's really not what healing is about. And so as you practice more, you begin to understand that it's not about the outcome. It's not about the doership. It's not about the process. And then finally, the way most people talk about Reiki and ordinary Reiki is they talk about how it harmonizes the system. It brings things into balance. And of course, when our systems are in balance, right, then we feel healthier, we feel better, and it allows for the natural healing of the body to take place, the natural healing of the emotions to take place. So harmonizing is a good thing, and it is a huge part of Reiki. But I think what most people don't understand when they talk about chakra balancing and harmonizing the system is that we're actually working with the elements of the system. With each chakra, right, there's a different element associated with it. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, the ether. And so we're bringing the elemental structure of the individual into a greater harmony. And this does allow for the natural healing processes of the body to take place. And then the other thing is, as this happens, one of the things we always tell people when they're starting a Reiki session is, if nothing else, you will probably feel deeply, deeply relaxed. And people will tell me, I've never felt so relaxed as I have now. More relaxed than a massage, more relaxed than a warm bath, just a deep, profound relaxation. But what they're not recognizing is we are also bringing the gunas into balance. And so what they're experiencing as relaxation is actually a rising up of the sattva within their system. And in so doing, not just physical, but also emotional and psychic obstacles and samskaras can be lessened and removed. And the person begins to live a more sattvic existence. Just as when we practice yoga, of course, we begin to do a more sattvic existence and old patterns can drop off and things like that. And so it's a beautiful practice in that way, and that's why to me it is so much a true practice of yoga. Not only does the client feel more sattvic, but indeed it is the case for the practitioner. After all, the love force of the divine is flowing through me. How can that not help but to cleanse out whatever impurities are there in my own system? And so often the practitioner, as well as the client, receives a beautiful healing. And then for some, they get on the Reiki table and they have an even more profound experience. They come out of the session and they say, I don't know where I was. I was not asleep, but I was completely not in my body, and I was just in the universe. Some see gods, some see ancestors, but some just feel the universal Brahmananda, and they feel the bliss of pure being. And so they get an introduction to a samadhi state that they may never have otherwise attained. And this is what I call wisening in Kali-Ki Reiki, that the healing process itself allows for one to come into states of consciousness, to expand the consciousness in ways perhaps they've never experienced. And so, this is why, for me, Kali-Ki Reiki is a sadhana and it is a yogic practice. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.